Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast, episode 685. And what I got for you first is what I like to call the evolution of Eric Adams. He is the mayor of New York. He is the man who wanted New York to be a sanctuary city. He said all the immigrants can come. They can come. I don't need to check them for anything. IDs, this, that, nothing. Just get them over here. That's what he wanted. I'm going to show you the evolution of his opinion over the past year. And then after that, I'm going to show you a Rogan clip. Coleman Hughes and Joe Rogan speaking about the immigration crisis, because Cole actually lives in New York, so he is seeing it and he's feeling it. So we'll get his perspective on that. Let's start with the evolution of Eric Adams. This is 1 year ago, how Eric felt.
As the mayor of the city of New York, I don't, weigh into immigration issues, border issues. I have to provide services for families that are here, and that's what we're going to do. And that's what our responsibility as a city. I'm proud that this is a right to shelter state, and we're going to continue to do that. This is horrific when you think about what the governor is doing, the governor of Texas, after a month of traveling across the border, placing on the bus with no direction to come here to New York. And New York is a city that has always represented the democratic values and the values of our city, of showing our compassion. And that's what we're doing today.
He's showing his compassion. That's what he's doing today. Now we're going to go just 9 months ago. Let's get into how he felt back then.
Yeah, no, that's not on the agenda at all.
A little background quickly. This is actually him answering the question. Somebody asked, are you going to take away the labeling of New York being a sanctuary state? Are you going to stop that and put things at a stop, at a standstill, so you can gather and figure out the situation? This is his answer. He's already said no, but you'll hear the rest.
And I think of, as we celebrated the birth of Jesus, he was faced with a no more room, but there was a place that was found. And that's what we're doing. We have no more room, but we're still finding spaces and accommodating. And we're going to continue to do that.
That's good. Good. There's no room, but we're going to continue to accommodate. Just so you know, soon after he said that, or even I think a little bit before he said that, he started suggesting that New York citizens open their doors to illegal immigrants who have absolutely no background checks whatsoever. If you had a spare room, he was just saying, put them in your spare room. It's fine. It'll be okay. Rent is pretty high. Just crazy. Crazy. Same guy that wants to watch their meat consumption. This guy's just bad all around. But now you're going to see this is him talking about the situation just 1 month ago. Let's get into it.
We're receiving no support. And let me tell you something, New Yorkers. Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. One time we were just getting Venezuela. Now we're getting Ecuador. Now we're getting Russian-speaking coming through Mexico. Now we're getting Western Africa. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City. And everyone is saying it's New York City's problem. Every community in this city is going to be impacted. We got a $12 billion deficit that we're going to have to cut every service in this city.
It's almost like he didn't think of this as he was saying that they should all come to New York. It's like it didn't even cross his mind. It's like all of a sudden now he's like, whoa, what's happening? They're all coming here? I mean, I said all of them, but I actually didn't mean all of them. What did you mean then, man? This guy's same guy that spent money on police, robot police, to patrol the streets. Same guy that's suggesting that they track people's meat consumption in New York. Same guy that wants to take away gas stoves. Like, this guy's just bad all around. Doesn't think things through, man. Anyway, I'm getting pissed off. Rogan, Cole Hughes, you're going to hear them talking about this issue right now. Let's get into it.
About you live in New York City,
yes,
and whether or not the migrant crisis is a real thing.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing. You notice it in Port Authority. And I think when Eric Adams gets in front of the country and says, I can't handle this, I think he's telling the truth. Right? And some people have accused him of racism, bizarrely, but I don't think it comes from that. I looked into this, and the part people don't know about this story is really the full unfolding of it goes back to the 1930s. New York State made a constitutional amendment to the state constitution, which required the state to provide housing for the homeless, essentially. And it was sort of vaguely worded. So in the 80s and 90s, the courts in New York began interpreting that more and more strictly. Almost no other state, I'm not sure if any other state actually has something in its state constitution requiring that kind of a thing. So basically what happened is the judges ended up interpreting this more strictly. Obviously, the original purpose of this is for New Yorkers that are homeless to be housed. But they ended up interpreting it so strictly that when the Republican governors in Texas and Florida began sending a few thousand migrants up to New York City as kind of an FU to the liberal cities that have declared themselves sanctuary cities without actually having to deal with the kind of border crisis that Texas does. The first few thousand found that legally, New York had to house them. And then word got down to Mexico that if you make it to New York City, you will not be turned away. Legally, you don't even have to be a citizen for the state amendment to apply to you. So what began as a few, let's say the first 10 or 15,000 were sent by the Republican governors as a kind of political tactic, has now become tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands coming of their own volition to New York City. And it's the only state in the country where Mayor Adams has no legal recourse to send people elsewhere. He actually cannot do it. He's tried to do executive orders, but he legally can't because it's in the state constitution. It's above his power. And now it's its own. It's taken on a life of its own, way over and above what the Republican governors started. So this is why he's going to the national media and literally saying, I can't do anything about this. I'm trying to do something about this, but I can't. And we're putting people up in Airbnbs for $100 a night, and the city will be bankrupt in X number of years if we don't find a solution to this.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I was looking at a video of the Roosevelt Hotel, which is no longer a hotel. They've essentially said this is now a center for housing migrants.
Right.
And they've said the restaurant is no longer a restaurant, and sorry, that's just how it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do if you own the Roosevelt Hotel? And you just wanted it to be a hotel, and now the state just says nope.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't blame any of these people. If I was born in Mexico,
100%,
we'd all be doing the same thing. It's
100%.
just it's a smart thing to do from their perspective. But that doesn't mean from our perspective that we should just put out the bat signal to the whole world and say, you can come to New York City and we have no legal recourse to move you anywhere else.
It's not just New York City. It's other parts of the world. It's strange that recently it's become this crisis where migrants are coming en masse to these places and just flooding them. Like, is this orchestrated? Is this just a fact that they found out that they can do it and it's better than where they are? And if they go there, these places that are, essentially, they're charitably minded and they would like to house people that are down on their luck, but now people are sort of taking advantage of that loophole and just swarming.
I think that's what it is. I think the whole Western world has become much more open to immigration recently. Obviously, America was open to immigration in the 19th century, but we were the outlier. All the other countries of the world, the default was closed borders, essentially. So I think the whole world has, out of empathy for the poor and struggling, has wanted to have more permissive immigration, but that sends an incentive to people of the world that they can now come, they can abuse asylum laws. And again, I don't even blame people for doing this because it's exactly what I would do if I were born in Guatemala or Syria. I would say, hey, I'm a refugee. This is my story, and I would probably lie about it in order to get a better life than the one life that I had. But this is just a true side effect of those compassionate laws: is that people abuse them. You get immigration pools that are vastly proportionally male, which is how you know that they're not refugees because where are the women,
right?
It's a side effect of the intended compassionate immigration policy. This is how this works. This Thomas Sowell's great quote: "There are no solutions, there are only trade-offs." This policy has a trade-off. It's more compassionate, but it also leads to, in the case of New York, what could be a serious fiscal crisis.
Someone told.
When it comes to these policies that he's talking about, you know, being compassionate and everything like that, it's very true. But the problem with the Democrats, these Democrat cities, is that they get they're so compassionate. Think about this. They're so compassionate that they are willing to have New York City bankrupt in a short number of years because they've allowed so many immigrants in. In Chicago, they're so compassionate and such compassionate laws that they're allowing people to loot. And if the people get arrested, they're released the next day. It's like a catch and release type of thing. They're so compassionate that they're allowing destruction to happen. It's so ridiculous. And I get it. The people in those cities, I've heard this 100 times. The people in those cities, that's what they voted for. Yes, 100%. That is what they voted for. But they didn't know they were voting for that. They didn't know that those people would get so compassionate that they would start allowing destruction to happen, that they would allow chaos to start spreading. They didn't know that. They thought they were voting, you know how black people get brainwashed. They thought they were voting for the people that weren't racist. They've been told that the Republicans are racist and the Democrats are not. They thought they were just voting for the people who would actually, you know, sit in a room with them. People who would actually converse with them. They've just been brainwashed. They didn't know it was going to turn into this. Nobody in New York knew it was going to turn into this. Nobody in Chicago knew that it would be like that. They thought that the police would at least still have power. They thought that, you know, you want to let immigrants in. Everybody's a product of immigration if you go back far enough. So I'm sure there's people in New York who were like, yeah, some immigrants, but they didn't think it would be that many. They didn't think those immigrants would be allowed to do things like rob and assault. Like that stuff's really happening. They didn't think there'd be friction. They didn't think there'd be so many. They didn't think that they would get pushed aside and feel like second-class citizens to these people who just arrived. They didn't know that. They didn't know that. But they're going to start talking about Venezuela. Very interesting. Listen to this. This is very interesting.
Told me this. I was looking to check into this, but I figured I'd wait until the podcast. Someone was telling me that the Biden administration is talking about sending people back to Venezuela. Deporting Venezuelans. See if you can find anything about this.
Why Venezuela specifically?
Because Venezuela is dealing with a communist socialist government, and they wouldn't vote for that in America. Now, one of the things that's weird about this crisis is it comes at the same time as people trying to say that you should have no voter ID. And they've openly spoken about it in New York that people who are illegal immigrants should be allowed to vote. Yeah, which is really, look, I cannot talk shit.
They've been pushing for that for years.
I cannot talk shit because I am the product of immigration. My parents,
yeah, as am I.
My grandparents came over here in the 1920s, and that is just, you know, okay. Like, that's why I'm here.
Where'd they come from?
They came from Italy and Ireland, and that's just why I'm here. You know, so they came over when they knew that they could have a better life in America, and these people are doing the same thing, and I understand it, but it's just wild that there's no requirements. It's like there's no background checks. There's no checks to see if you're on a terrorist watch list. There's you're just like letting people through. Biden administration will begin deporting Venezuelan migrants directly to Venezuela. I mean, that is just so
the idea is Venezuelans are going to vote right-wing like Cubans.
Yes, like
Cubans. They hate socialism.
Exactly, because it's ruined their country.
I'm curious, what is his stated rationale, though?
This is okay. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas confirmed that the administration has successfully negotiated a deal with Venezuela to execute the policy, but did not say whether Venezuela was getting anything from the U.S. in return. We are a nation of immigrants, and we are a nation of laws, Mayorkas said at the same Thursday press conference. Officials said that some migrants have already been identified for deportation. Starting today, the United States will begin direct repatriations of Venezuelan nationals back to their home country. And in fact, we have already identified individuals in our custody today who will be removed promptly in the coming days, a senior official said. Venezuelans make up a large share of border crossings, and for years, the U.S. has generally been unable to deport them because of frosty diplomatic relations with Venezuela. Mexico has agreed to take some, but it remains a difficult issue for the administration and for cities receiving migrants. That is so transparent. The fact that they're saying Venezuelans and that they're communicating with the Venezuelan government to deport these people, that That's so gross. It's so gross.
Yeah, it's very strange, very weirdly selective.
It's just transparent. It's very obvious as to why they've been so loose about this border crisis thing in the first place.
And I assume you saw.
How wild is that? Think about that. Think about that. Now think about, like, if you remember when I played Mayor Adams, he was talking, well, even if you don't know, he was talking about how they're getting people from Venezuela. He said, we're even getting Russian-speaking people. It's like, you're going to send away the people who are from Venezuela, but you're going to allow with everything that's going on, all the conflicts, Ukraine, Russia, you're letting the Russian-speaking guys come in? What? No problem. I got no problem with Russian people, but I'm just thinking from a border perspective, when you have something like that going on in the world and a Russian guy comes and he's like, I just want to come in and I got no ID. You letting me in? And they're just like, yeah, New York, head over. Like, that seems a little crazy. But Joe's 100% right. They are coming from a socialist government. If you don't know about Venezuela, go look up Venezuelan money art. Write that into Google. Venezuela money art. Their inflation has gone so crazy that they are literally people are making art out of money. They're weaving the money together and making art and selling it because the money's worth nothing. It's so crazy. And of course you're going to vote those people away. You know why? And it's not just because those people won't vote. Those people will turn to other people and be like, hey, I've seen what's going on here. I've seen it before. I've seen this before. Where I'm from, this was just happened 10 years ago. It was like the way it is now. Here, you have to, they'll start waking people up. They'll start running around waking people up real easy. Because you got to listen to those people. I say it all the time. Listen to people from Cuba. Listen to people from Venezuela. Listen to those people. They've been through it. They've seen it. They've seen the worst of the worst. Man. But yeah, wild what's going on in New York. It's going to destroy New York. Imagine New York going bankrupt because they wanted to be compassionate. I've said this many times. I've said this early in the podcast when it first started. You know, in the name of how much destruction are they going to allow in the name of inclusivity? How much are they going to allow to be destroyed? And everybody just has to sit back and watch. It's wild. Hey, listen, if you haven't liked the episode already, like the episode. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure to subscribe. Make sure you hit up IamCoachColin.com. We got the best anti-establishment merch known to man. Check it out, MSNBC, mainstream news brainwashing citizens. And we have the Public Enemy #1 shirt, because you know who that is. And we have what I got on right now, Soul Not For Sale. We got different variations of that as well. For 10% off, put in the discount code IamCoachColin. And if you don't have time to listen to this, go to the comment section. It will be the pinned comment. You'll see everything there. And other than that, I'm out.